would like to welcome you today to the P.E.A.R podcast, where our goal is to share the stories of women who have pivoted, explored opportunities, adapted to circumstances, and repositioned themselves for success, no matter what life or business puts in their path. And today I have with me as a guest Anja Lavigne, and she is a transformational house coach and energy focused interior specialist. I don't think I have ever heard anybody with that title before, Anja. So would you like to give us a little bit more of a explanation about what it is that you do?
Yeah, I don't think I knew either before, but because there's a couple of different modalities in this company, House Coach, um, these areas all kind of come together. And there is that design aspect of everybody loves beauty. Beauty is very feminine. It's all very subjective.
Sure.
And I'm here for clients to, give them and offer them that beauty in their space. There's also a key piece that's important is the functionality and the art of placement, and that the energy and the chi and the flow goes through. So there seems to be a sense of harmony and direction. And our home is like our sanctuary. And so it's important that we feel that we can rest and rejuvenate. And then when all of this kind of stuff happens, where there's change going on and it moves around and things shift, that's an energy piece because when the space shifts, we shift.
Mm.
So just think about something so simple as opening the window and sweeping the floor in a room, in one of the rooms in your space. Like you feel different after. You feel better. Like you're like, okay, let's get the cobwebs out. So
And it's getting to that time of year where spring cleaning's coming up because we're recording this about mid-February, where, come next month and March and April, people are talking about that. So probably a good time to have this conversation. So I'd like to take you back almost to maybe the beginning. What did you want to be when you grew up? Probably not a house coach.
no, but I will say I always loved design, and my first teacher was my grandmother.
Mm,
And I really, like, she really had a sense of furniture placement. Furniture wasn't backed up against the wall. She knew at that time to put modern and antiques, even
mm,
though it was in the 60s and 70s for me. But so she had that sense of style and making a room really feel you want to be in.
mm.
And growing up in a home that didn't have a lot, sometimes we just moved furniture around just to change the feeling of it and have some newness in the space.
So it sounds like you kind of came by this naturally without realizing it from your grandmother to hand you down. So when you really got started working, what types of things were you doing?
And so, yes, I didn't start in design. Maybe I didn't start in design because maybe I was intimidated and I didn't think I could be an
Mm,
interior designer. But I also had a fascination. I was very interested in humans and I really very much enjoyed children and really loved seeing the different stages and how they grow and the psychology behind it. And so I took early childhood education.
mm,
And I went into childcare, and at a very young age, I think I graduated at 22, and by 24, I was the director of a nonprofit childcare center.
wow.
And there I was, really supporting families. I had a very big open door policy. So it really allowed me to learn about interpersonal skills,
Mm,
not just with the children. I had a staff, and I was governed under a lot of different levels of government because this daycare was housed in the school. And also, the daycare, when I received the position, was actually in a deficit and ready to close.
oh,
And
wow.
so, along with the school trustee and the city councilors, I'm here from Ontario, Canada. Everybody has different language for levels of
Yeah.
legislation. But we had to really, really rally to keep this childcare center in this neighborhood because it was much needed for the families, the inner city families. And so I got really thrown into that at a very early age, but I seem to enjoy the politics part of it as well.
So it sounds like that you were able to come in a leadership position at a very young age and help to change and grow. So it sounds like change, moving furniture or moving people or moving, it just that whole change process seems to be part of you in some different way as you work through. So, how long did you stay within that organization and what made you change from that?
Well, the second child, I was having my second child, and to me, probably the most important job in this lifetime for me was being a mom. And I didn't want to work full time. So when the second child arrived, I thought, okay, I still want to hang out in the water cooler and hang out with some adults and not just the park. So there were parenting program opportunities. And so I ran a parenting program in, again, inner city schools. And it was part-time. And there again heightened my interactions with parents. And the whole sort of idea behind these parenting centers, which were housed in schools, was to really empower the parent. And most of the time it was the mother. And
Mm,
if the mom who feels good about herself, and of course I will say there were fathers, but it was mainly mothers, then they could feel much better in parenting their children. Because,
yeah,
many of these parents came from very stressful situations. I mean, parenting children, like being a parent is stressful to begin with. But then there were different things that came around, like financial situations, single parenting, and a lot of sort of from their childhood, that whole bunch of inner child stuff from the parent. And so
right.
really it was about empowering the parents, and it was all about, oh, come and bring your children, the storytelling and snacks and all of this. The parents always stayed. That was the whole mandate, the stayed. So there was always some sort of um lesson or conversation going on every day, but it was never planned. I mean, for the children, it was all planned, whatever the
Right.
theme may be, spring. But for the parents, it wasn't. So I would pick ideas up from hearing the parents. I thought, okay, during snack time, this is a perfect time to do, a teaching opportunity. And so, um, yeah, I mean, again, I enjoyed it as, for the time period that I was doing it.
And I think that's kind of an important piece too, is that we live in seasons in our life. And when we're in that season, we enjoy what we're doing, but somewhere along the line, that season changes. And that season changed for you too.
Yes, and I love how you say that, because that was a nurturing
Mhm.
nurturing season. And and I was nurturing children and parents, but I also was needing nurturing. And we all know that, like, when we're giving, we're really also receiving. So I did receive a lot, being there. And but it got to the point where I didn't enjoy it. And I also was coming home. Um, there's a lot of tragedy that happens in neighborhoods like that. And if you start coming home and you can't sort of put it on the side, then
Hmm.
you are not going to be able to offer your exceptionality. And it was time for me to change. And so I looked out of the classroom window one day, and this is where we talk about manifesting in the universe. And I'm like, okay, it's time to make some cash. I want to do something else. What that was, I don't know, right? And not that I wasn't being paid properly with the school board. Of course I was, but I wanted more of a full-time. I feel like the creative juices needed to come out,
Yeah.
and it was more than putting together a little themed, creative table or Play-Doh or something like that.
It is. And you said in your pieces that you sent to me, you made a statement that I really love. And you talk about sometimes a pivot isn't about leaving your purpose. It's about finding a healthier way to live it. And it sounds like you were kind of right in the middle of that at that point when you made your pivot.
Yes. And another time that the pivot was happening was when I was running the childcare center. And at that point, and at that age, I could really have gone up the ladder and then started working with the ministry and really climbing up. And some of the parents who were lovely and they knew my potential and said, "You're making a mistake cutting down to full-time to part-time. You have so much to offer." And the pivot for me was, well, now, right now is the nurturing mom time. Like I need to be the mom for my kids.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's another time that I felt because I of course it's been learning for me, learning growth, but I don't want to go on with regrets. And I
Sure.
didn't want to regret not hanging out in the playground with my kids.
And I
And
think that that's a choice that women need to make is that you have to realize when your energy level is going down. They talk about you can't give people something that you don't have yourself. You can't share from an empty cup. So if you're feeling, they're going, no, stay full time, and you're going, no, I need part time because this is what's going to, number one, energize me so I can do what I need to do for my family, but then also to be able to give back to the community. So I think that sometimes women have to stop long enough to maybe realize where they are energetically for themselves.
yes, and this by no means nothing to any of the amazing moms that were CEOs all their life and had two, three, four children. I mean, one of the things I always talked about it wasn't about the time you spent, like the quantity, it was the quality.
Yeah.
So everybody's different, but that was
Yeah.
something that was very near and dear to me.
Yeah. So, did you jump straight into this home design, or how did you get from where you were in working within the school district to now working as an entrepreneur?
So I have come from families of entrepreneurs, so that probably was a little bit in there. But what happened, I mean, I've always loved design. I would go into open houses, all of that. So it happened so organically. It was, again, I'm bringing my children. We have a shared nanny and dropping them off in the home that morning. And the husband says to me of the house, you know what, Anya? Oh, we're having an agent open house today, this afternoon. And I said, oh, wow. I go, and I'm thinking, and your place looks like this. This was back in 2004, and Canada is always a step away, like far away. Like California was already doing staging in 2004. Anyway, so I said, "Do you mind if I just make a couple of little changes?" And he goes, "No, please do." So in 20 minutes, I transformed the living room, dining room area and really, made sure that the fireplace was a focus. There was a conversation, so the arrangement of the furniture, sort of the knickknacks that was distracting ones and could not actually see the place for itself was removed. And he was impressed, and I was like, felt like the best, like I was like on cloud nine because I love that. And he said, you do such a great job. You know that there's a service out there. And I thought, what? Anyway, yes. And so I quickly learned that. And then I thought, okay, well, somebody else is doing it. And I thought, wait a minute, you live in a big city. There's more than one stager out there. And so everything kind of just flew off really naturally. But I didn't start it full time. I started it part time. And then all the money that was coming in went right into the business. And the company was called Show and Sell Staging and Design. And I started, door knocking, meaning going into open houses, meeting real estate agents. And before you know it, when I turned 40, I left the school board and I left all those wonderful benefits because my cup was getting more fuller by allowing my creativity to come through.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And I think one of the other comments that you made, in your feedback that you gave me was one of the biggest challenges you had in that transition there was getting out of the poverty mindset. Can you explain that a little bit and how that impacted you and your business?
Mm-hmm. So, both sets of grandparents, mom and dad's, they were middle class, upper class. But my parents came here and they were just making it, if not go below. So we grew up below the poverty level. Um, w- People were dropping clothes off on our porch. There was not enough money for food. So that was going on, and my dad was three jobs, and my mom had depression and which we didn't really know at that time, and mental health and ADHD, and so the home was very distraught. It wasn't clean, it wasn't organized. Our parents loved us, but they didn't know because their nervous system was just like going like that, and so, and us children could really feel that, and so ha- really having that of not deserving was a big piece. And so
Mm,
when we got to the staging part, when I got to the staging part, it I knew that I had to build on my resources, which would be my decor. Furniture came later on, art and all that. Um, but there had to be a switch where what you're bringing in is not looking and feeling of value, of luxury. The placement of the art and maybe the decor items are perfectly placed. I have a very good sense of that. But what it was not the right pieces. And so I
mm,
quickly learned that. And I was also very, and I always think that the universe has got your back and everything. So I really started in more of a community that wasn't so high demand and expectations. And so I kind of learned through there, and then really sort of changing that mindset of, and also pricing properly,
yeah.
so it was not just the pieces, but it was also allowing me to receive proper payment. And that was huge. That was huge. I mean,
And
definitely
I,
doing a lot of inner work as well throughout. That
right.
is not a one-time deal.
And I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that. What is my value? I don't think that, especially starting out, many business people realize, what value they bring to the table and how to price, especially when you're just a service-based organization. I think sometimes when you're a product based, it's easier to figure out maybe what the price of the product is compared to other things out there. But when you're service based, yeah, sometimes you can look at what other people in similar industries are charging. But there may not be somebody in your area that's doing that. And I know sometimes that can become a challenge for entrepreneurs in specific areas. So I'm glad you were able to work with that. But like you said, it's a learning process. You have to figure out what is it that I bring to the table and where do I fit within that pricing structure.
Yes. And I mean, I was not the first stager in Toronto, Ontario, but I was one of the beginners. And so there wasn't that much mentorship. And also, staging is a money making, like, I, I was making money for clients.
Right.
My business now, it's more of a feeling. It's how you feel and how you, the person who lives in the space or works in the space, prospers. And of course, what I do now, it affects our finances, our health, our relationships, our environment can support us or hinder us. But this is more of a feeling business, house coach Anya, as opposed to show and sell. It was a money making. So I was making people money. They, you know, were going to pay.
So why
Money makes
why did
money.
you or how did you make that? Yeah, exactly. How did you make that transition then from your staging to where now you're a house coach?
Right. So again, as you can tell, if I get a download and it's like there needs to be something else happening here. That's what happened. So for 16 years, I was staging. Show and Sell was around for 16 years. And at that time um, at the end of, for me, for pivoting, um, I was busy. My company was doing really well. My name was really well known in the city, everything. I wasn't perfect. You're always doing better and better. But I really wanted to support people who are living in their spaces because I saw such a transformation that was happening when people were getting their house ready to go on the market. And it didn't matter. It was, people who were downsizing or people who were upsizing anytime you had to move for whatever your reason was. So if somebody says, what were the demographics? People who were selling, that was my demographics. And I always started with a consultation, and sometimes that's all I did, but very passionate to each individual client because I feel most of our investment is in our home. So I want to make sure that they would get the largest dollar that would be out, like that they could receive. And so with that, I gave them the teacher in me came out and they had a long list of homework on a to-do list. And that was, what do we need to remove? What do we need to
Mm,
refresh? What do we need to resign? Like all these re's and space sells. So if you had a small closet, let's and show it space. If it was big, like and we live in our space, we forget. And I was like really amplifying the home and bringing it up to its level, and they were doing the work. And so when the sign was up, go up and I'd see them towards, now it's time to sell. They all had these three areas in common. And one of them was, I can't believe how much stuff I have. And we're talking the average everyday people, you and I, like, why did I have these soup cans that had expiry dates? Or why are all these, Tupperware with lids not, like that kind of stuff. And some of them put them in storage areas, that's fine. But they definitely got rid of a lot of stuff. And the second was that they're like, oh my God, I don't want to move. I love this place. And again, it wasn't necessarily me with my furniture and decor and everything like that. And thirdly was the big one that was like a aha for me is their skin looked better and they seemed more happier. And not that they were miserable, but it's a stressful time. And you're like chomp,
yeah.
chomp, chomp. You don't have 1 year to declutter your home. You might have a month or two. Um, and they were happy. Their skin looked better. They were happier. But then it was the house shifted
Yeah.
and they shifted. And so that's where the energy piece came into me. I'm like, look at that. Did I understand energy? Certainly did when I was young, because I could feel the tightening of my solar plex living in a very unkempt home. But if we do
Mm.
the full circle, and I'm not leaving Earth today, but my parents were my teachers. How would I understand? Like now, as a house coach, I really understand, and I can feel what a room is. Like I have that. I always had that, but I didn't realize that. Like really can feel
And
a
I
space.
and I think sometimes it's important because we realize, and whether you're talking about finances, you're talking about, how you keep your house, and what you do with it. But sometimes generational dysfunctionality gets passed down without realizing it. And until you can make a change or a shift into something different, you don't really realize that, I need something different. But you explaining that you were helping these houses to be ready for show to sell, and all of a sudden people are like, well, we kind of like it now that it's been shifted. So now you are a house coach helping people to live better in the spaces that they have, sometimes by eliminating, sometimes by moving some things around, and sometimes maybe by adding some things. So
Absolutely.
could you kind of give us an example maybe of how you have helped somebody um, change the energy in their home?
Oh, there's a couple recent, but I'm gonna give one that was a huge change. And so it was a single woman living in her home, and she has an open floor plan on the first floor. The home is not very old. I don't know, maybe it's say 20 years. Beautiful, bright windows. She's very clean. And she's a school teacher, music teacher. She teaches piano and also an entrepreneur, has written 2 books, hosts women's groups. So very connected, really understanding the whole feminine and the entrepreneurship. And she attended one of my workshops on your workspace, and she realized that it wasn't working because she was working on the edge of the love seat in the middle, like in the seating area. And that was really where her office was, which I like to call our passion studio. And she was moving up in her business, but her space was not. Her space
Mm.
was way over there. And it felt a little lackluster. There seemed to be some sadness because intuitively I can start feeling things like that. So I said, I'll just call her Sally. It's not Sally, but Sally, we had a call and I said in the call, I said, what how would everything look like if nothing changed in the next 6 months, if everything stayed the same because you're sharing how you're frustrated and things aren't the way you want them to be. And she's like, I don't want to be there. I want change now. And so it was a 4 hour session. I have different packages, but it was a 4 hour session and we completely moved everything around. So the front room was the living room, and there was a couch that was her grandmother's. So it was an heirloom, but we flipped it to the other side of the room and we brought in a desk that she would sit and see the whole space. So it wasn't against the wall. So furniture placement is very, very important. And what I do is I shop in the home. I'm like, we're not going to buy new desk set right now. And it's not like when I get the desk, then we'll do that. So she had a kitchen nook and in we took that kitchen table and we used that as her desk. Now, interestingly enough, it had some rounded edges. So it had this softness about it. And
Mm.
it wasn't it was wood. Wood is a very good material for desks. It gives a lot of strength and grounding. It wasn't the right finish, but that was fine. And then we did a little L shape and we transformed that space. In the middle of her space, she had her dining area. She had her dining table, and then by the wall was her love seat, kind of thrown to the corner. And then at the end, which is the kitchen, we took that kitchen table. So I said, how do you feel if we get a little sacrilegious here and we take the dining room table and we put it in the kitchen? And so we switched it over there. Again, how the table was placed. I mean, it was a beautiful piece, a beautiful dining table. But then in the middle of the space where the couch was, we centered it. We put a round coffee table, which she had, and it was a little bit higher. So we thought, oh, it's not going to work. And 2 occasional chairs. And all of a sudden, there's a seating area.
Mm.
There's a dining area in the kitchen, modern kitchen. And then there is the room that was doing nothing, the living room. It was totally ignored, and that became her passion studio.
How about that?
When she says, as I come down the stairs every morning, I'm greeted by this new space, and I'm like so excited for the new day.
That's amazing. Now, when you do this work, is this something that you do physically in the houses or do you do it virtually?
I do it virtually because not everybody is, you know, in my area. I had a 6 months coaching, design coaching, energy with a woman in Mexico,
Oh, wow.
high professional, lots of like helps people with books, an editor, a writer. We transformed her whole space. She was a little bit nervous. She loved, like, she was following me for a while. She was a little bit nervous because she's like, how much am I going to have to spend? And she could not believe that she still get got to keep her brown couches, which she hated, but then we added color in there that worked, and we rearranged, and we like, and she goes, I like, so that was all virtual. And her business excelled
Yeah.
because she felt good about her
You felt
space.
better. Yep. Yeah.
She felt like she was the best thing since, and walking in the space, and like why do we love those beautiful hotel suites or those Airbnbs? Why do we walk in there? Because it's luxurious, and every one of us deserves luxury.
We do. We do. Well, I really have enjoyed hearing your story. And if anybody is interested in connecting in with Anja and knowing more about her, we'll have ways to connect with her in the show notes, links to not only her website, but also her LinkedIn profile. So check in with her, and hopefully we can help a few more people get their spaces to where they're energetically feeling so much better than what they are right now. So thank you very much, Anja, for being with us today. And we look forward to having a conversation with you again, maybe sometime in the future.
Oh, thank you so much, Jillian. This was so lovely.
It was fun. Thank you.